Our story begins in a dark time for the Israelites. For 40 years, they were oppressed by the Philistines. In the town of Zorah, a man named Manoah from the tribe of Dan lived with his wife, who was barren and childless. One day, an angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, "Though you are barren and have no children, you will soon conceive and give birth to a son. Be careful not to drink wine or other fermented drinks, and do not eat anything unclean. This child will be a Nazirite, set apart for God from birth. No razor shall touch his head, for he will begin the deliverance of Israel from the Philistines." Amazed and filled with wonder, the woman ran to tell her husband. Manoah prayed to God, asking for the angel to return and explain how they should raise their son. God answered his prayer, and the angel returned. Manoah asked, what rules should govern the boy's life and work? The angel repeated the instructions, emphasizing that Manoah's wife must obey everything God had commanded her. When the child was born, they named him Samson. As he grew, the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir in him, especially in the area between Zorah and Eshtaol. One day, as a young man, Samson went to Timnah and saw a Philistine woman. He returned home and demanded, "Get her for me as my wife." His parents were troubled, saying, "Isn't there an acceptable woman among your own people? Must you marry a Philistine?" But Samson insisted, "Get her for me. She is the right one." Unknown to his parents, this desire was part of God's plan to confront the Philistines. On his way to Timnah, Samson encountered a young lion. As he walked along a narrow path, a fierce roar echoed from the forest. A lion charged at him, but the Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson, empowering him with incredible strength. With his bare hands, he tore the lion apart as easily as one would tear a young goat. He told no one, not even his parents, about what he had done. Later, returning to Timnah for the wedding, Samson saw the carcass of the lion. Inside, he discovered a swarm of bees and honey. He took some and ate it, then shared it with his parents, though he didn't tell them where the honey had come from. At the wedding feast, Samson posed a riddle to his 30 Philistine companions. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. He promised them 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes if they solved it within 7 days. For 3 days, they couldn't answer. On the 4th day, they threatened Samson's wife, saying, "Coax your husband to explain the riddle or we'll burn you in your father's house." Samson's wife wept and begged him to reveal the answer, accusing him of not loving her. Finally, on the 7th day, he gave in and explained the riddle to her. She told the men, and before sunset, they gave Samson the correct answer. Samson was enraged. He replied, "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle." Filled with fury, Samson went to Ashkelon, killed 30 Philistines, took their clothes, and gave them to those who had solved the riddle. Samson returned to his father's house, and his wife was given to one of his companions. Later, during the wheat harvest, Samson tried to visit his wife, but her father refused to let him in. Believing Samson had hated her, he offered her younger sister instead. Enraged, Samson vowed, "I will pay back the Philistines for this," and sought revenge. Samson captured 300 foxes, tied their tails together in pairs, and attached torches to their tails. He released them into the Philistines' grain fields, setting them ablaze. The flames destroyed their crops, vineyards, and olive groves. The Philistines, furious, burned Samson's wife and her father's house in retaliation. Samson swore vengeance and attacked them, killing many before hiding in a cave at the rock of Etam. The Philistines camped in Judah, and 3,000 men of Judah went to Samson to bring him back. "Why have you done this?" they asked. Samson replied, "I have done to them what they did to me." They bound him with new ropes and brought him to the Philistines. As Samson approached Lehi, the Philistines came shouting to meet him. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and the ropes on his arms became like charred flax. He grabbed a fresh jawbone of a donkey and killed 1,000 men with it. Samson then declared, "With a donkey's jawbone, I have slain 1,000 men. Afterward, exhausted and thirsty, he cried out to God for water. God opened up a hollow place in Lehi, and water poured out, reviving Samson. Later, Samson visited Gaza and spent the night with a woman there. The people of Gaza, knowing he was there, surrounded the city to ambush him at dawn. But Samson arose in the middle of the night, uprooted the gates of the city along with their posts, and carried them to the top of a hill, defying the Philistines. Samson's final love was Delilah, who was approached by the rulers of the Philistines. They offered her 1,100 shekels of silver if she could uncover the secret of Samson's strength. After several failed attempts, Samson finally confided in her. "If my hair is shaved, I will lose my strength." Delilah, seeing that he had told her everything, called for a servant to shave off his hair while he slept. When Samson awoke, he thought he could break free as before, but he didn't realize that the Lord had left him. The Philistines captured him, gouged out his eyes, and took him to Gaza, where they bound him with bronze shackles and forced him to grind grain in prison. Yet as time passed, his hair began to grow back. The Philistines gathered to celebrate their victory, and Samson was brought out to entertain them. Standing between the pillars of the temple, Samson prayed to God for strength. "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Strengthen me just once more, and let me take revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." With all his might, Samson pushed against the pillars, causing the temple to collapse, killing more Philistines in his death than he had in his life. His brothers and family came to collect his body, and they buried him in the tomb of Manoah, his father, between Zorah and Eshtaol. He had judged Israel for 20 years. The life of Samson is a powerful testament to how God can use flawed individuals to fulfill his purposes. Though Samson was known for his incredible strength, it was his faith in God that allowed him to carry out his divine mission. His story reminds us that even in our weaknesses, God can work mightily through us.